Hey, everybody, I'm Becky Robinson. I'm the author of a book launching today. It's called Reach Create the Biggest Possible Audience for Your Message, Book, or Cause. And the best advice I ever got was to use social media as a place to build real relationships.
A place to build real relationship. Becky, come on now. Really? Who taught you that?
Well, I don't know who for sure, but I feel like there were a lot of people that I met along the journey who I'm probably including you, Phil. Maybe you're the one who gave me the advice, who talked about we need more social and less media.
Yeah, right on.
Are you
So,
the one who said that?
probably I've said that, right? A lot of people I think have said that. So I wasn't fishing for me, by the way. I was just curious. So how has that served you, Becky? Real relationships, right? I mean, you mean you actually get to go out and meet people, like for real?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it has served me so well, Phil. So I started using social media back in 2009. And at the time, I was writing a leadership blog. And, you know, kind of at the start of my social media journey, I really tried to get to know people and, take some relationships offline and, meet people in person when I had the chance and, really understand and care about what the people who I was following and interacting with in social media, like what they were actually up to, what they were actually doing. And I have a recent story though. This one is really powerful. So I had followed Dee Dee Honor on I think Instagram and LinkedIn for years. She's a Michigan-based HR pro, and she was connected to a lot of people I was connected to. So I was just kind of following her from a distance, and I knew she had once had a German Shepherd she loved, and I have a German Shepherd, and so not that long ago, maybe 9 months ago, I saw her post that she was retiring from her day job. So I sent her a note. I said, "You don't know me, but I've been following your social. I love your sunset pictures. Could we have a conversation?" And by the end of the conversation, I had hired her to consult to my company. And I think it's because Dee Dee was real on social media that even though we hadn't actually made that real connection, I felt comfortable enough that I could go to her and say, "Hey, like, I'm your fan and you didn't even know it."
That's awesome. That's awesome because often we hear stories about people coming to us, right? Because we're kind of social media peeps. But it's nice to hear that even someone that's as established as you would use social to find someone for you to work with. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I still want to. I mean, I think that's the beautiful part. Like when you actually care about people as people and you get curious about, what are they up to and not only curious about, well, can I add some value to them, but also like, well, what's the value they might have to bring to me? What can I learn from this person that I might not know if I hadn't met them?
Awesome. No, I love that.
Mhm.
And today's, by the way, speaking of which, right? Today's Karen Hurt's birthday. I know Karen's one of your
Oh, I did.
favorite
I saw
people.
that. I
Yeah.
adore Karen. Happy
Yep.
birthday, Karen Hurts. Yes.
Yeah. Speaking
Mhm.
of real relationships and real things to do, right? Wishing people a happy birthday is an easy thing to do. And that's one of the things I teach folks. But today's not about me, it's about
Well
you.
well,
So
maybe I should call her up on the phone. Maybe I should send her a text message.
maybe, right? Not while we're interviewing, Becky. That would be
No,
rude.
don't
Okay.
worry.
Okay,
You
good.
have my full attention and focus. Well, so speaking of wishing people a happy birthday, earlier today I had a virtual launch party to celebrate my book, and I had a special guest there, and I know you know him too, Phil, Tanmay Vora. And I met Tanmay back in 2009, and the reason why we built a more solid connection is because he picked up the freaking phone from India to call me on my birthday. And I have never, never forgotten that. I tell the story in my book.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. Yeah, he's called me as well. And it's always interesting to see who actually humanizes the connection and who just keeps it social and then who is just automating the connection, right? So because I think there's three different ones, and to that, those who take the extra step and build a relationship get more reach, right?
Well, of course they do, because reach is not only about having a bigger audience, it's also about having lasting impact. And if you keep things at that superficial, like automated level, then you can't impact anyone. You have to go deeper. Although, like, I think it presents some challenges, Phil, because the thing that people complain the most about related to social is, oh, people only put their best stuff forward. They only tell the good things. And as a mom of like adult and teenage kids, Well, you can't really go out there with the real stuff all the time. Like when you have real life hard stuff going on, you have to kind of make choices about what's safe to share. And so I think sometimes that creates a dissonance, that it's a little bit harder to be your authentic self when there are parts of your life that you
Hmm.
have to hold back. So you have to
Hmm.
get creative about how do you let people know that you're human without sharing something that's not yours to share.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I think, uh, yeah, I think if we personalize it though, we talk about our challenge and we don't talk about our kids' challenge, right? Because I've got a 6-year-old and a 15-year-old now, and I will tell you, my biggest thing is I don't mention their names, and I typically don't. To your point, right? I don't share their challenges. I might share when they challenge me, for sure, right? But I don't share their half of the story, and I think that's authentic, right? I mean, because it's not my story to tell, like you said there. I mean, if you and I, I might not tag you, right? If you and I had a discussion that maybe got a little bit heated, I might not tag you, but I might say, I had a conversation today with a friend, and we disagreed about such thing. That being said, I don't think you have to share everything. I just think sometimes you have to let people, right, let your window down and let people see in.
Well, certainly so. And um, I think that's where, thinking about, how can I be as real as possible? How can I be as honest as possible? For me, that ends up looking like, sharing, hey, I got my book proposals rejected a bunch of times before I got a yes. And then after that, I was kind of too scared to start because I'm a book marketer and good grief, what if I fail? And those are the kind of things I'd like to be able to share, which I think make me human. And there's no one whose toes I'm possibly stepping on when I just share like my own experiences and emotions. Or, oh my goodness, Phil, this morning I set up a tripod. I wanted to make a reel on Instagram because my team says, those reels get great reach. I can't stand making video in front of a camera phone. I absolutely hate it. So I send the video off to my team member who's going to put captions on it. She sends it back. She's like, is this okay to post? Like, yeah, it's okay to post. Go ahead. But I hate it. Like, how do we even?
Well, okay, so one of your principles in the book is about consistency.
Mhm.
Okay, and consistency starts with sucking first, right? So think about back 15 years ago, Becky, when we met each other, right? And frankly, neither one of us was that great of a writer. Let's just be honest, right? We were just connecting person to person, sharing experiences, but at least compared to where we are today, right? And
For
not
sure.
right.
For sure.
So 15 years ago, right? But we started. But I think that's the big miss, right? People are afraid to get started. So if they want to really get reach, right? If they want to create the biggest audience, how do they get started? I mean, you just said you hated it, but you did it anyway, and I think that's admirable. So how do others get started on their reach journey?
Well, I think that it's really helpful first to be able to identify clearly when you're a beginner. So, while we might not be a beginner in life, you might come to online spaces and you've had this like really impressive career offline. I'll use my brother for example. I actually spoke about him on another show. So, my brother is a 3-star general in the U.S. Army. He has a Wikipedia page. Um, but as it relates to once he retires from the Army, if he starts to show up in online spaces and he wants to write and promote a book like he's told me he wants to, he has to recognize that he's really going to just be beginning. And like, no shame for him. He didn't have the freedom as an Army officer to post about his learning and experiences on social media. So, yeah, first of all, just be able to recognize that it's okay to be a beginner. It's okay to be at the start of this journey. And one of the things you can do when you're a beginner is ask for help. And the beautiful thing is that when you ask for help, it really disarms people. Of course, people want to be helpful to you. And if they can see that you're really showing up consistently, of course, they're going to walk beside you on the journey. I think about people who helped me in the beginning. I don't know if you remember Steve Rossler. I haven't seen
Of
him around in a
course.
while. Steve or Dan McCarthy or Wally Bach, like these fantastic leadership bloggers back in 2009, 10, and they were willing to lend a hand to like a brand new blogger and give ideas and advice and support. So, be willing to ask for help. And you also have to be really patient. You can't show up in online spaces and think in a month or two you're going to sell something or you're going to have a huge following. You just really have to realize that it's going to take time to get to where you want to go. Phil, back in the day, I think it was like maybe 2011 or something, and you and I were playing at launching a business together. I really thought, despite the fact that I had not built a big network yet, that I could write some ebooks and people would pay me money for them, which was crazy because you know what worked really well? Writing the ebooks and giving them away for free.
Yeah.
So I think in the beginning, you also have to be willing to like put out whatever value you have, however, you're fumbling to provide value and just give it away. And in the process of doing that, you'll learn what helps people, you'll learn what they like, you'll learn what you're good at. And it might take time to, really hone in and say, okay, here's the area that I can contribute about.
I like that, right? I think that's really good. I like the idea of giving it away. I learned early on, David Meerman Scott was the first person that I ever remember, Becky, that gave away things even without gated, even without an email form. He would just give stuff away. And his first one of his first ebooks, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million downloads, right?
Wow.
If I could give away a million copies of something, that would be amazing, right? But we think, right, sometimes our ego gets in the way, like, oh yeah, if I write it, people will buy it. But Danny Jacobson here quotes, right, consistency starts with sucking first. We have to admit that, right? We have to admit that. And so with that, if we give it away, we also have to receive that feedback that somebody might say, hey Becky, this could be better. Are you open to hearing what it could be, right?
For sure, definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Uh, well, and we have to stay that humble no matter where we are on the journey. I could get like all puffed up, like, "Hey, look, I'm 10 years in. I've been in business 10 years, but guess what? I can still suck, right?" So I
Yeah.
have to be humble enough to hear it and keep learning and keep growing. Um, yeah, I'm just thinking that oftentimes the first book you write is the worst one, right?
Yeah, well, sometimes it is. Although I will say though, I don't. I've this is not your first book. This is just the first book that's in print. I want to be really
Yeah.
clear here, Becky. You have written a lot of stuff. You've written many ebooks and a lot of stuff. This just happens to be the first one that I can put in my hands without going to Kinko's and printing a copy of it. So
Yes, it's in my
congratulations, right?
hands too. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
so fun. It's so fun.
Yes. Yeah. So let's dig a little deeper right into your four things here. I'm fortunate. You sent me an early copy. My copy that I bought, I think, arrives today, which I'm super excited about.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, for sure. So you've got four kind of things, I guess, four pillars, four commitments
For
you call them,
commitments,
right?
yes.
Yep. That
Mhm.
that we build around here: value, consistency, longevity, and generosity. So let's start with the first one, Becky. Let's start with value. What the heck does value even mean? Because a lot of people would say, well, of course, value. But what does that mean?
Well, so there are a few things that I think about when I think about value. And the first one is that, if the work is good, it will spread. And that's something that David Cooper Ryder, who is the father of appreciative inquiry, that's something he told me. So if you haven't heard of AI, not artificial intelligence, but appreciative inquiry. Basically, it's an idea that has spread around the world. And it started in a doctoral dissertation that David did when he was in his doctoral program at Case Western Reserve, I believe, is where he went to school and where he also still teaches. And one of the decisions that he made early on was that he was just going to set his ideas free in the world, right? And he told me, if the work is good, it will spread. So when I talk about value, it's like you have a point of view or an area of expertise, and it's worthwhile to the audience that you're gathering. And so one of the things I say in the book is like value is not the same for everyone. As the parent of some kids with special needs, for example, if I happen upon a podcaster, and I have recently, who's podcasting about autism and ADHD, well, my ears are wide open, right? But if there's another parent and their kids don't have those particular issues, they're not going to find value in that podcast. So value is really dependent upon the audience that is receiving the content. So my content, for example, if you don't want to make a big difference in the world with your ideas, then my content won't be of value to you. Um, and so there's this whole piece of really understanding who your audience is, and then from there understanding what content they need, whatever hits their felt needs, whatever is going to answer their burning questions, whatever is going to inspire them to action. And so you always want to start from this place of knowing who you're creating content for, and then ensuring that the content meets their needs. And so the other thing about value is you have to create something. And content is the container for the value that we bring to the world. So, I might be an expert, but I'm not creating any content or sharing any content. People can't get that value. It is stuck in my head. So the way that we, expand the reach of our value is to share it more widely. So
Mm,
that's really the first one. You have to make a commitment to showing up with value.
wow. Wow. So you said some big stuff there. I just want to spit that back there. So first you said values dependent upon the audience receiving it. I think super important, right, to remember saying, knowing who the content is for and maybe who it's not for too, and then making sure that it meets their needs. And then this one like smacked me right in the head here. You have to actually create something to give value, right? You have to put it out there. You have to try. You have to risk. You have to do that. So, Becky, I know you talk to a lot of authors. So why the hesitation? Why do people not do this? What's holding them back, do you think?
There are lots of reasons. So one could be that they're overcommitted. So I've written a book, but really I have this big job that I'm doing. And so it's about all I can do to write the book. And then I have to just, go back to my job. So whether that's real or whether that's imagined, it's this sense of being over committed. And part of that starts with not having support. And another part of that comes from not really understanding the value that's contained in that product that they've created. So, one of my favorite parts of the book to write was chapter 7, which is about repurposing content. And when you think about value, one of the ways that you can reach a bigger audience over time is to share value in different ways, in different places. And then, you can even repeat the value because you're in front of a new audience. So, maybe these stories that I'm telling you right now are old, but your people, Phil, haven't heard them before, right? And so we can get farther with our messages when we're willing to see that any content that we've created, an ebook, a blog post, a podcast, a video, it can all be reshaped and reformed into other formats that continue to add value where we share them. And I think what happens with some authors is they're just not thinking about or aware of or um, let they're not thinking about it, they're not aware of it, and they're also not, like, creatively considering how they can expand the reach of their messages by repurposing it and reshaping it in different ways.
Sure. Yeah, I think part of it also is they get tired of their message because they've said it 1,000 times, 100,000 times, right? They've said over and over again, but that's me focused as the author instead of
Mhm.
you focused as the audience. And I think just that little twist sometimes can help us just remember why we do what we do, right? Why we get this bigger audience, not just because we want a bigger audience for audience's sake, but the word you used before, we want to make a bigger impact on the world, right?
For sure, and so I had that forget feeling tired of saying the same thing. If my saying the same thing means that someone else has hope and inspiration or purpose, then by all means, like, I'll figure out a way to keep saying it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting, right? So many authors do go on the podcast circuit, if you will, and then they don't share it because they think, oh, well, nobody needs this. But I'll tell you, people need our message, right? People need our
Mhm.
message. So Liz Wool says, fall in love with the people we want to help, and our story is to help them, not about us. I think that's a great reframe there, Liz, that helps us really focus on that. So let's go back here, Becky, because the book is full of stuff. We could go anywhere on this, but I really want to dive into chapter 5 in the framework
Oh,
because
okay.
right? Because the fundamentals are great. And the fundamentals are certainly important. We talked about those a lot today. But let's talk a little bit about the framework here, because I think this is important. This is where I think a lot of folks go wrong because they don't consider all the pieces of that. So take me through the basics of the reach framework so that we can help close that influence gap. Or do you want me to hold it up so you can look at it?
Ooh, and I know the framework, but thank
I
you.
know.
Um, all right. So, I think when people think about showing up in online spaces, quite often what they do is they think about social media first. So they think about like, okay, I'm going to grow this TikTok following. Phil, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to grow this TikTok following, or I'm going to grow an Instagram following, or I'm going to grow a Facebook following or a Twitter following. And maybe your particular favorite channel changes over time, but people think about going there first. And there's a real danger in that because the popular channels are always changing, the algorithms are always changing, and you never know when, some channel that you've spent a lot of time on, hello Google Plus, just disappears. So, what I always coach people to do is to start with the places that you own and control. And that would be your own website. And then once you have a website, growing a permission based email list. Now, Phil, I'm going to tell you this idea is not popular with a lot of people. Most people can get on board with, yes, of course, I need to own my own website. But, some are reluctant to grow an email list. Now, thinking about the website, the important thing about your website is it needs to clearly display the value that you have to offer to the world. So, to our conversation about value, your website should be the place that all your best content either lives or is accessible. You want to make sure that the best work that you create stays available to people. You don't want to put your best work on someone else's platform. So, at the center of the reach framework is this idea that you give your best energy and effort to the place that you own and control. And the reason I feel so strongly from there about email marketing is that email marketing at the moment is the most reliable way to get people's attention. If I send out an email to my list and 15 to 17,000 people on any given day, I can be assured that if I've written a good subject line, maybe a third of the people will open it. So that could be like 5,000 people who would see my message. Compared to LinkedIn, where I have a following of, I don't know, 5 or 6,000 people. And what I see when I go to LinkedIn is that most of my posts are reaching 20, 30, 100, 300 people if I'm lucky. Not only that, I don't have a way to personally reach those people unless I send them a direct message, which is really slow and cumbersome. And I may not even get a response. Whereas with my email list, hey, I've got your address. I can send you a note personally. I can take that relationship to the next level. So, at the center of the reach framework is the website and the email list, and also any kind of content that you're creating, whatever the form is, if it's video, if it's blogs, if it's ebooks. And by focusing on those fundamentals, you can ensure that you can build an online presence that adequately represents the value that you bring to the world. From there, social media is fantastic. It's a place to reach new audiences and build new awareness. But what I would say to any, author, thought leader, cause leader is that you really have to get those working well for you before you make an investment of time and money in something that's on the outer edges of the reach framework. So what's interesting is a lot of authors will come to me and you know what they want, Phil?
What's
They
that?
want a PR campaign.
Oh,
They
yeah, sure.
they want, to get articles and interviews and be on podcasts and radio shows and such. And there are a couple of gaps if the person has not invested in the fundamentals. The first one is that those podcast hosts or radio hosts or TV hosts or columnists, they'll go to your website and it won't make sense. Like they won't there might be a gap. Like you don't look like you should be someone featured in media. And so you might miss the opportunity. I'm sure Phil, that there are some podcasters, they won't even have you on if you don't have a minimum number of followers on your social media because the reason they want you is to help expand their reach. So, I get frustrated when people think, well, I have a book to promote, or I have a cause to promote, or I have an idea to share, and they want to jump straight to media. Like, you really need to lay the foundation with the fundamentals first. That way, when you invest time, energy, and money in PR, you're going to be more likely to get a good result and a good outcome.
Mm, good.
Yeah,
Good. So that's good.
same.
Okay.
Yeah, same with
Go ahead.
ads. Like, why would you spend money on ads? Like, exhaust the free possibilities first.
Yeah. Well,
Exhaust the
and look
organic
like
ones. Yeah.
yeah, and look the part, right? I think that's the other thing that a lot of folks often miss is you have to look the part first because people have not encountered you yet. Like it's one thing, right? Like if I, Becky, we've been friends a long time. If I showed up at your house in pajamas and a Brewers jersey, you'd be like, "Okay, dude, come on in." But if some stranger walks up, you're like, "Huh? Like, what are you crazy? Like, you're not getting in the house. I'm gonna get the shotgun out and you're gonna go away." So I think that's so important about
Mhm.
looking the part first. And I think that's often overlooked. And then to your point, I think often then they bounce out to the outer pieces of that and waste money instead of spending time. So is there a speed up, Becky? I mean, if we invest time and money, if I had both, right? If I had 90 days here, is there a way to speed that process up or no?
Well, I mean, I think yes and no, Phil. It really depends. So if you're a person who has had, amazing real world expertise and recognition, you can sometimes skip some of the steps because people are automatically really going to want to hear from you just based on whatever you've done in the real world. A few factors, right? If we're promoting an author who has a PhD, that sometimes will open doors to media that, the podcaster or the columnist will overlook their lack of kind of social media momentum and feature them anyway. So there are some ways to, jump faster, move faster. If you have the right story on the right day to the right reporter, anything is possible. I think there's this whole part of like just opportunity that sometimes happens. Like you could get lucky, right? But I would far rather do the hard work over time. And then you don't have to wonder if you're going to be lucky in promoting your book. So, not to brag by any stretch of the imagination, but my team and I took a look. I've recorded 16 podcasts that have either already gone live or are going to launch soon. I've written and contributed 11 articles. And then there are all these other just like friends and people who are writing stuff about me and I didn't even ask them to. The only way that happens is because I've been showing up to build those real relationships over time. So I think when people come to online spaces and they don't have those existing relationships, it makes it harder to get those opportunities for them. And really, all I can do sometimes is trade on my own reputation. And it's my relationships that are opening the doors for people. But
Yeah,
there's no guarantee.
right. So the shortcut is to be famous before or
Mhm.
to catch lightning in a bottle. But the real answer, right, is to do the hard work. And that's what you're talking about in the book. And I really like that, Becky, because I was going to tease you and be like, so, Becky, what's the secret to going viral? Right. But
There's
really, there is no
there's no
secret. It doesn't
secret.
happen, right? It's
No,
just
the
luck.
secret is yeah. Sorry, the secret is there's no secret.
Right. That's right. So good stuff. Okay, cool. So let's bring this home with something that is synonymous for me with Becky Robinson, and that is generosity. I'd love
Aw.
for you to talk about generosity and how that plays into making sure that you're creating the biggest possible audience for your message.
Sure. Well, I think that generosity is a piece that's probably unexpected. And did I lose you? I can't see you. uh, and the reason why I believe so strongly in generosity is because it's something that anyone can express. Like even if you don't have a lot of financial resources, anyone can be generous with their time. Anyone can be generous with their ideas. Anyone could be generous with their encouragement of others. And what I found is that generosity is this thing that like immediately attracts someone to you. It's this thing that, people don't expect. It disarms them. It makes them more open to you. I want to say though, you want to just be careful that your generosity is not self-serving. And so your generosity needs to be like other centered, open handed, not expecting anything in return. But it is just a way to build a relationship quickly. At my party earlier, Jennifer Conweiler, who I know you know and love, told a story about, after she met me the first time, we had been sharing some common likes of a TV show, and I sent her a book in the mail. Like, I might not remember that except that she did, and she's told me that story, right? Um, and what Jennifer says is it was that, gift that I sent her that, you know, helped to cement our relationship early on, helped her to see the kind of person who I was, and, led her to continue to seek me out. So, you know, I think it can be challenging, especially when we're starting out, to think about what it is that we have to give. And, maybe it's easy for me. I come from a place of abundance. I always have had the resources that I needed to do the work that I wanted to do. I know there are people who don't have that. But again, even just being generous with your ideas or being generous with your encouragement of others, even if you can't be generous, maybe you can't be as generous with your time because you have to work two jobs and pay your bills. And um, I have not experienced that. So, um, I don't mean to shame anyone, but just think about what is it that you have to give. Everyone has something they can give.
Good insight. Good
Yeah.
insight. So, Becky, my friend, where would people get started on the reach journey? Right? If they're like, okay, I don't yet have an audience, but I do have a message. Where would they get started? Reach. Obviously, we want them to get a copy of the book, right? That's obvious.
Sure.
But what else?
Yeah.
Like, well, give me one or two steps to get them on the path.
Sure. I think the first step is really getting clear about the unique value that you want to bring to the world. And, to our conversation earlier about kind of being a beginner, part of being a beginner is to like, outline or take a stand for something. So get clear about the unique value that you want to bring to the world and also who you want to bring it to. And then I would say like one of the very first steps is to, create a website. If you can buy your name, Phil Gerbishak, how lucky were you to buy that one? Um, I am not the most famous Becky Robinson in the world, but I do own BeckyRobinson.com. So if you can get your name, the brand is you. So buy it if you can. If you can't, buy a domain that reflects the value that you hope to bring. Sharinginspiration.com. That one might be hard to get. Whatever it is, get something that makes sense. Get something that's unique and memorable. And by all means, please get the .com because everyone's going to think it's the .com, even if it isn't. So create a website. Start to create something. When we talked about value, value only comes when you create something. So start to create something. Maybe it will suck at first, to your point earlier, Phil, but start to create and share something. And, then just keep going, keep showing up. Um, one thing I want to say, Phil, in the book, there's a QR code. We won't show it for very long. And the QR code links to a landing page. When you put your email address in that landing page, you're going to be asked to take a quick survey. Forgive me, I want some info about my readers. But once you've put your email info into that, you're going to get access to a free course that my team and I built. There are 50 additional content assets in the course. And all you have to do is buy the book. And then you can journey through the additional resources that are listed in the book to go deeper as you want to create reach in the world. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm pretty proud of it. And, if you missed it, that's like generosity in action, right? Buy an $18 book and get a course. Who knows what the value is? Um, and then, journey with me. There's places in the course to leave comments and questions. I'm still figuring out exactly how I'm going to show up there regularly, but I do intend to show up there.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, congratulations, my friend. I'm super excited for your book. It's called Reach, Create the Biggest Possible Audience for Your Message, Book, or Cause. Becky Robinson is the author. You can go to beckyrobinson.com. It's everywhere that you'd find books. Becky shared a lot
Mhm.
of great stuff today, right? The 4 commitments for reach: value, consistency, longevity. And she closed with generosity, giving of herself, giving of her time, giving what you have to give. And we all have something that we can give. So great message, Becky. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I so appreciate you, my
Okay,
friend.
Phil, wait, one more thing. Can
Oh
I
yeah.
give some
Okay.
more away to your
Ooh.
audience?
All right.
All
Ooh,
right,
one
so
more thing.
actually two more things. All
Okay.
right. The first thing is if people are buying the book today or this week or whatever, next week, next year, next month, if they go to beckyrobinson.com /reach book plate, I can sign a book plate personal to them and then they can have a signed copy of my book. So, if you're a geek for that stuff, and I totally am, let me know. I'd love to send you a signed bookplate. The other thing is, I have some free audiobook codes out there. So, if you prefer an audiobook to a print book, I actually read the book myself. And if you buy the book today and send a note to Paul at weavinginfluence.com, you can get one of those free audiobook codes while supplies last. And then you can listen to the book for free, have the paper book to refer back to later.
Wow. That's
So,
very, very generous.
I was hoping I could share some extra gifts, and I know you were like wrapping it up
Yeah.
so nicely, but then I was like, oh crap, we forgot to tell them about those two fun offers.
Oh no, those are super fun. So cool. So yep. So if you miss any of that, right? If you're looking for that, I'll make sure that I show it in the show notes. I'm also going to put it on the screen here for folks here at the end. It's BeckyRobinson.com/reach bookplate. I just verified that does indeed work. You can fill that out, friends. There's no slashes, no dashes, no spaces, no underscores. Just BeckyRobinson.com/reach bookplate or Paul@weavinginfluence.com and get an audiobook. Becky, as always, my friend, you're a gift. I appreciate your generosity and your friendship more than I can say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Phil. You're the best.
Thanks.